Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us Behind the Science, where we connect you with Eurofins network of testing labs and more broadly with the science of food testing in a way that you may not have experienced in the past, from the viewpoint of the scientists themselves. Our guest for this episode is Christine McIntosh-Cole, Business Unit Manager of Eurofins GeneScan Laboratories. Throughout the webinar, as you're watching, if the topic raises a question for you, feel free, just reach out using the questions link. We will not address any questions during the webinar or the recording today, but we will follow up with you directly afterwards. So with that, I'm going to pass you off to our host, Dr. Doug Marshall. Doug, take it away.
Hey, thank you very much, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here again. I'm delighted to have Christine with us as our guest. Christine has a unique background within Eurofins in that she's had, I think, about every job title that we have. And I've been incredibly blessed to be able to work with her all these years. And I'm really happy that she agreed to join us today and tell us more about what she does in her current role and a lot more about her current business unit. Christine, my first question to you is, can you tell me a little bit about this background that I just introduced and how you landed in your current role?
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate you having me and having this discussion. So again, my name is Christine McIntosh-Cole, and I'm with Eurofins GeneScan in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I'm the business unit manager, and I will go where I am today and then give a little history. So the laboratory that I'm running here, we do molecular biology, and that is not where I got my start. I'm actually a chemist. So out of university, I started at a company that later became a Eurofins company, and spent the next decade and a half to almost 2 decades moving from being a chemist to client facing to key account management and now back into operations. So I've had the pleasure of being on kind of every side of things, behind the test tube, talking to customers, going to customer visits, and now bringing it back onto the lab side as well. So.
Okay. You mentioned you are a molecular biology laboratory. Can you tell us a bit about what kind of tests your laboratory performs?
Yes, absolutely. So we are actually the only molecular biology testing laboratory within the Eurofins US food division and actually Canada as well. We specialize in GMO testing, so genetically modified organisms, food allergen testing, and animal species ID. So kind of think anything DNA, protein, that kind of falls into our wheelhouse.
Okay. So, why would someone be interested in animal species ID?
Well, I think everybody should be, but I guess, so animal species ID is a very interesting one. It's quite a niche area of testing. So we're basically, it's what it sounds like. We're testing for the species of animals. I can give a good example. We've been seeing quite a bit of hypoallergenic pet foods coming on the market over the past several years. And that's an area where we would take, say, a product, and if a customer says, okay, it's not supposed to have chicken, we could test that product for the absence of or presence of chicken. So plant-based foods has become very popular over the past few years as well. So depending on the type of manufacturing going on, if a facility may be manufacturing meat products and then non-meat products, we can do that testing to prove the absence of, again, chicken, pork, different things like that.
So, would this testing also have halal and kosher applications?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So we can basically, it's anything to do with meat, non-meat we're looking at. So yes, absolutely. We get requests for halal. We may be talking to customers exporting to a certain country and they have certain requirements. Just anything along the food chain, our customers kind of have those different needs and we fit into our scope depending on those needs.
Okay. There was a recent recall of bologna, I think, due to undeclared meat species in that product. Would this be another example where you could use this technology?
Yeah, absolutely. We do get calls coming in from customers saying, I have this product. What do I do with it? Right? This is my situation. And we kind of talk through what the end goal is and what the need is. And yes, that type of testing would apply there.
Okay. So, allergen and GMO testing, that seems like you would use different technologies.
Mhm.
Um, could you maybe address those different technologies and why they have to be a little different?
Yeah, I mean, it's without getting too much into the details. Again, I'm not a molecular biologist. I'm a chemist at heart. Um, but my team, we have we're quite a streamlined laboratory, so you can think of it as sort of two lines of looking at DNA and protein. And so, for the most part, most of our methods for food allergens will be on the protein sort of part, using ELISA technology. And most of our GMO testing would be more on the DNA side, typically using PCR technology. There are some cases where, for allergens, we may do DNA as well and do PCR analysis. That's a little less common, gives you a bit less information compared to maybe the ELISA testing that we do. Just different information, really. So I think that's an easy way to think about it when you look at the way our scope of services works.
Great, thank you. So, given this portfolio that you manage, can you maybe pick one or two tests that are really challenging to perform at the bench and maybe a little bit why that is?
Yeah, yeah. I I think I would pick probably my number one, the GMO side of testing. So, we get a sample in house. What you get at the end is a tiny, tiny bit that goes onto the instrument. To get from that big, say it's a barge coming through the port of New Orleans, and we have corn being sampled, so we have, you know, kilograms coming in. We have to then grind that sample, homogenize it. And I think one of the most difficult steps and highly technical steps within that process is when it goes into our DNA extraction laboratory. That takes skilled technique. It's just one of those areas that it's the core part of getting that DNA out. And if we don't, we have nothing to test. So I would say that's one of the more complex ones.
So, those of us in the lab testing industry, we call this grind it and find it.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, from your customer perspective,
Mhm.
when they are interested in having, any of the tests that your business does, um, what is maybe the one test that's the most difficult for them to actually order? Because I presume you have
Yeah.
a long list of test codes,
Yes.
and it could be challenging for the customer to figure out what they really need.
Absolutely. And I would always say step one, talk to our team. We are the technical experts. We know where to direct a customer. I would say for the food allergens, it tends to be relatively straightforward, but there always are questions on, what methods do we use? What limitations do kits have? Things like that, right? So there's always going to be additional questions, even if you think, one allergen test is super simple. There's always something hiding behind the curtain that we can help you with. So that's one side. Jumping back to the GMO side, I think that always brings complexity because GMOs are complex in nature, and it really just depends on several different factors. So we support companies looking to export to certain countries. They may need help in understanding some of the regulations. They may say, I have this product, I usually sell it into the US. Now I'm going to sell it in the EU. What testing would you recommend? So that gets quite complex, but that's why we have experts that have been doing this for over a couple decades, and they can help maneuver through that sort of, decision tree on the best testing fit.
Great. One of the things that I run across quite a bit on my desk is a customer wants to do milk allergen testing, but they're not really sure what kind of milk protein is in the product that they want tested. So is it whole milk? Is it a casein? Is it a whey protein? So we have allergen kits for all the different proteins, correct?
Correct. So when it comes to milk specifically, we do offer a total milk. Some customers, that's all they're looking for. Kind of a one and done total milk. You mentioned casein, we have beta lac as well, two different components that behave very differently. We can test for those separately depending on the need of the customer. So, yep, we have three separate offerings that all kind of intertwine as needed.
Got it. So, GMO testing's been around for quite a while. Have the targets changed over the years, or have they remained basically static?
But there are some changes over the years. There's some things you will see that have been around for a while and we continue to test for. Again, it depends also on the export market a lot, what the inbound country is requiring. But we will see some changes, especially again, just recently we were speaking to a potential customer in South America, and we were kind of back and forth with them in the regulatory changes. And so we're always having to kind of keep up with that ourselves. And I would say, yeah, there are changes. Is it daily? No, but we have to keep an eye on that for sure.
Okay. Are there any tests in your portfolio that when a customer gets the analytical results back, they just really seem to struggle to interpret what it means?
Not to pick on GMO testing, but I would say that that's a good one. And food allergens and animal species too. Sometimes we may have questions. So something I didn't mention before, a lot of our tests some of them are qualitative and some are quantitative. So we'll see like our food allergens we do by ELISA are quantitative. So a customer will get a result, this equals 2 ppm. Great. Well, what does that mean? We can kind of go through those discussions. But if we do, say celery by PCR, that will be a qualitative test. So it's going to be detected or going to be not detected. And similar for the animal species ID, we typically do a kind of that yes, no, detected, not detected approach. And for GMO, similar, we do qualitative, quantitative, depends on the need. So we often will have customers request, say, qualitative testing within the GMO scope. And they may come back and say, okay, what does this result mean? If I wanted to quantify, could I? And what does that look like? And then we carry on further testing and kind of walk them through that process. So I would say we encounter that quite often, actually.
So it sounds like you have a really important customer connection and customer conversations and consultative role beyond just, send us a sample, here's the result, we'll see you next time.
Yes, and if that's the need for the customer, also fine. But we do find that our line of work is quite niche, so we end up with a lot of questions, and we prefer to get that understanding ahead of time to ensure that we're recommending the most relevant testing before we begin testing a sample.
Very good, thanks. Do you have any new tests that your business unit has onboarded recently?
Yeah, I would say the newest one we have is a pine nut assay by ELISA. So pine nuts was recently added to the tree nuts on the FDA list. So we had done pine nut by PCR before. There wasn't a lot of availability of kits for quite a while for ELISA. We do have one that we implemented, we use, works great. So I would say in the past less than 6 months or so, we implemented that assay.
So occasionally you might need to run a PCR for allergens. Mm-hmm. How often does that occur? Is that a common thing that you would do, or really based on special situations?
I would say it's not usually the go-to. Typically, the ELISA analyses would be the go-to, but we do have some cases where customers are interested in seeing, if I did it both ways, because it is different technology, you're looking at different things, you're looking at DNA and proteins, so we lean more towards the protein when we talk food allergens, but there is important data you can get to from the PCR side and the DNA side. So sometimes they'll do them in tandem. Sometimes it's just not a really good method for ELISA too. So that might
Yeah,
be a route we go depending on how the sample itself it works also.
yeah. So if the protein is denatured, for example, or if it's
Hmm.
complex with something else,
Yep.
the ELISA may not pick it up very well. But if you go for the
Yep.
source through PCR, then at least you can say, hey, there's the potential for the protein to
Yep.
still be there. Okay,
Correct. Absolutely. Yep.
nice. Let's see. Do you have a couple of frequently asked questions you get from the customers, other than how much?
How much and how quick? Uh,
Ah,
which I will say, within our scope of services, we can do testing very quickly. We do same day testing, next day testing. Those are our rush options, and then our standard testing as well. So we get asked that very often, and we're happy to answer those questions too. Um, we get a lot of questions, kind of, I have this product, I need it to go to this country. Oh, I have this product. I need to meet this certain standard, say, and can you do the testing that will show that we comply? Things like that. So we do testing on anything from a raw ingredient all the way up through finished products as well. So you kind of think of the questions you get along the food chain, and those are the questions we get. Also, if customers working through an issue they may be having. They may say, okay, we have this product. We think we have an issue. What do you think? We may say, okay, well, what ingredients are in that product? You know, do you think this could be a source of the, issue that you're having? Things like that. And we kind of break it down with them too. And um, a lot of times customers will just ask, does your test work on my type of sample? And luckily, as a chemist, a lot of times our chemistry methods would struggle a bit depending on the matrices. Typically, our methods tend to work quite well on most matrices, so that part makes it easier for our customers to order our testing. Actually, for the most part.
okay. What kinds of products, materials do you test? On the GMO side, I always think commodity testing. But
Yeah,
are there
yeah.
other things other than oil seeds and maize, for example, that um, you do a lot of testing with?
Yeah, so I mean, I could say that we got our start doing testing on products you just mentioned, right? So here in the Port of New Orleans, the grain industry is very important locally and for export to just about every country. So we still see a lot of soybeans, a lot of raw corn, you know, lecithins, soy flakes, things like that. So grain derived products as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, for GMO testing, we see all kinds of stuff. We see animal feed, pet foods. We see confectionaries. I mean, it just again depends on the customer need. But we see quite a lot of finished products too, or even just intermediate products along the food chain.
So the natural products industry, they're not big on GMOs, are they?
No, not particularly.
And so, you put all natural on a label. How does anyone believe that without doing verification testing? Do you have an opinion on, um, how your services can help both the brand
Yeah.
owners as well as consumers think about the term natural?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That might need a whole separate interview and discussion. But it is absolutely a topic. Actually, I would say GMO, food allergens, all those things that we do actually kind of tie into a lot of those discussions. Um, and opinion or not, it's yes, verification is very important. We, you know, we will have customers, as I mentioned earlier, say, we're trying to make a claim, and if it needs, say, gluten-free or non-GMO project, we are an approved laboratory with the non-GMO project. What can you do to help us? Well, we can do the testing to support that. We don't have an opinion on the data that comes out, but we can support the science side of it and give you results that you can then use as needed in your path towards getting either your compliance approval or whatever it is our customer's looking for.
Okay. And the same would be for someone using the term organic on a label?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of these terms are quite broad. So within, you start talking organic, you start looking at other things too, right? Pesticide residues and all these different things. So the specific scope that we cover, I see us as a piece of that puzzle. We're not the answer to the whole puzzle, if that makes sense.
Got it. Okay. Um, Here's an oddball question, so hang on with where I'm going with this one. So when I go to a steakhouse, not that I go frequently, but sometimes I have to entertain customers, and I see on the menu Wagyu beef.
Mm-hmm.
As an ignorant consumer, I am 100% reliant on that restaurateur to actually be selling me Wagyu beef if I order that from the menu. And I got to tell you, I've oftentimes been wholly unimpressed that that's actually what was ordered or what was served was a Wagyu, it came from a Wagyu cow. Do you have tests that can differentiate breeds of cattle?
That's a tough one, Doug. I would have to check with my technical team on that because cattle can be quite complex. Some of the testing can have cross reactivity between, say, a bison and normal cow that we do and things like that. But those are the discussions that we like to have with our customers. So if you're talking more about I would say that's more of an authenticity inquiry. We definitely do handle those as well. And we would bring in our technical teams to really talk through those details to make sure we're understanding what's the concern, what's the end goal, and what are the limitations of some of the tests. It's science, right? There will be some limitations, so we can kind of all be on the same page. We'll see similar situations like that, say with fish, right? We do have fish authenticity as well. So that's a really interesting topic that when customers have questions, we kind of talk through with them again. What's the end goal? What's your concern? And then we see, does it fit within the scope and can we help?
Yeah, there was a recent ruling where FDA banned a seafood distributor for 5 years from being in the business because of rampant species substitution. And they also nailed a bunch of food service, restaurateurs who were buying and intentionally substituting species on their menus. So, I mean, it's a big ripoff to the consumer.
Yeah.
But I was just interested to see that FDA was finally going after food fraud because normally they're not that interested in that. They don't have to count dead bodies. They're understaffed. So we just let the marketplace figure that out. But it's nice to know there's an analytical solution that can provide definitive evidence.
Absolutely. And I will say, too, with Eurofins being a global network of testing labs, I mentioned that Eurofins GeneScan US, we are the only molecular testing laboratory, molecular biology testing laboratory in our North American food testing division. But we do have counterparts in different parts of the world. So we have also collaborated with our global colleagues. Sometimes there may be products that need to be tested because the test isn't available in the US, but it's available in China or vice versa. We can actually do the DNA extractions here at my lab, and we can ship out that DNA extraction to get tested by our colleagues, and we collaborate with our colleagues on sort of those technical discussions. So I think that's becoming more interesting as we get more inquiries that are of a global nature, not just in my laboratory, but just within Eurofins in general.
Yeah, so I can see two things here. If I am sourcing raw materials and ingredients, one important question to ask is this authentic or not?
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do a ground truth test is very valuable when you're trying to choose amongst different sellers of these products. And like most things in life, those who are selling the cheapest material, it probably isn't what you want to buy. And then the other thing is bounty hunters are making a living going after brand owners for adulterated or substituted material. And that could be absolutely devastating to the brand reputation and brand value if you're fingered in selling material that's not actually representative of what you're declaring on the label.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of your business is we keep everybody honest in the industry.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
throughout the supply chain.
Keep everybody honest, and we also support in sometimes things happen accidentally. A supply chain gets contaminated unintentionally as well, and we're there to support when these things come up. It's that's just how things go in the food chain sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. Great. So, what does the future look like for your business unit and the portfolio that you support? Where do you see this line of testing going?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. As you know, I mentioned that we have our global colleagues as well. We are trying to partner more with them as we support global customers, trying to do a bit more alignment on test methods and troubleshooting, seeing how we can do things better, become more efficient. Just high quality is a focus for us. We have high technical expertise as well, so really just keeping that going as we keep up with the changes in all the different markets. So, like I mentioned, hypoallergenic pet food earlier. When I first came into the Eurofins world, that wasn't even a thing we talked about. So when we support customers like that, we think, okay, how does it make sense for us to support a customer with these new products? So we kind of have to evolve as our customers evolve and as the food market evolves, whether it's pet food, human food, the raw ingredients, everything. So that's the fun part of it, just seeing what's next. And yeah, I wish I could tell the future, but we're excited for it.
So, I have an admission. I'm jealous because your laboratory is situated in one of the most striking locations in the world. Could you tell the audience a little bit about the physical plant that you work in?
Yes, so you can't see, I'm facing the wrong way. I should have faced the other way of our lovely building. So within our building here, we're in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the US. We have several Eurofins laboratories, and we are in a multi-level building facing a lovely lake. If you've ever been to New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, we are actually co-located with a university, which is quite nice. So over the years, we've had internships and some people converting over to permanent employees within our group as well. So yeah, it's a great place to visit. We have a lovely building. We love to show people what we do. We welcome people to visit, and it helps us in New Orleans, I guess. Yeah.
And what do you see when you look the other direction?
Well, this is the New
Maybe
Orleans
not, maybe not
skyline.
from your office, but from the
If
laboratory. You get a
if
nice
I yeah,
skyline view of
if
downtown
I
New Orleans.
yeah, if I peek out a little bit, I see on kind of on the left, yep, skyline of New Orleans, on the right, Lake Pontchartrain, in between our laboratory, just full of windows. It's actually very nice. Our lab team loves that they can do their work while looking out a window and getting bright sunlight coming in uh, all day. Or see the rain, because we have a lot of storms as well.
Understood. What is the most challenging part of your role as business unit manager? Maybe you can just describe what a business unit manager does.
That's a good question. I think it depends on the day, actually. So, it's kind of I would say, a hybrid role. It's some operations, it's some sales and business development, heavily focused on our customers, quality, what are we doing next technically, how do we fit into the Eurofins group, how do we fit in with our competitors. So it's a constant movement. um, for me personally, from my location, I would say it's focusing on always improving, always improving. We do a really good job. Our turnaround time's great, we have great technical expertise, but we can always do better. So it's always looking at those pockets of areas that we can keep optimizing, keep improving, and just moving forward. And I think, you know, change is not always easy, but I think my group has been very open to some changes we've been making, and just trying to see what works better. Um, Again, I mentioned efficiency. We uh, we have some instrumentation that we're looking at using, and kind of tapping into colleagues, seeing how they use it, and just really collaborating a lot more. I think the collaboration amongst our labs that is similar to our laboratory brings us more strength in how we can support our customers globally.
So, what's the most rewarding uh, part of your job? So, you wear a bunch of different hats. Certainly, one or a couple of those things really get your juices flowing, and say, "Yeah, I really like doing this part of a difficult job."
Yeah, it's hard to choose. And I think in this particular role, no different from all the previous roles I've had, it's just helping our customers get what they need. You know, we get that call or that email saying, oof, I have this and I don't know what to do. Okay, let's work through it. Let's, let's make sure you can get things done. Or if anybody's familiar with New Orleans, we don't get a lot of snow. I'll give a good example. Back in January, we had a snowstorm. We had 12 inches of snow in one day. That never happens. Sure enough, we had a customer have an emergency GMO testing need, and the samples had to be done then. So we pivoted. Of course, we have to be safe. We couldn't get to work for a full day or two. But when we did, and the samples arrived, same day testing was done. Nobody left until the samples were done, and we all felt very accomplished that we could help. We knew that customer was in need. They were also going through trying to get samples through a snowstorm themselves, and we all figured it out together. And at the end, the customer just got what they needed, and it feels good to be able to do that. To say that our service answers a question they may have, gives them the data that they need, and they know they can rely on us if they need us again.
Great. So, you get to work with a lot of other people outside of your business unit,
Mhm.
and their roles vary from quality support to ops support to business development support. Um, you have a reputation of being able to mesh extremely well with everybody. And I'm just curious, do you think that's because you've had those roles previously, or is that just your inherent nature?
I think it's a mix of things, right? I think I grew up in a different country that you kind of talk to everybody. So I think it's partly my culture and how I grew up and how I was surrounded by things growing up. But then moving to Louisiana, similar culture. People are very social and they like to talk to each other and share ideas. And then as I actually moved into a corporate role, I worked remotely for over a decade. It was a new way of interacting with people, all remote before it was a thing. And yeah, I had to adapt. Every time I had a new role, I had to adapt. And I love the challenges. I've had several roles where I have no authority, but I have to get things done by people much higher than me. So that also takes different levels of conversation and just adapting to the different personalities that we have within our team, within our customers, putting yourself in other people's shoes when you're having a conversation. Just, I continue to grow with that every day. I have to remind myself, okay, what's the other person probably thinking when I say something too, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in your career with Eurofins, you've had the opportunity to travel all over the place, domestically and internationally.
Yes.
Now, I'll ask the question, but you can't offer New Orleans as the answer. What is your favorite place that you visited on a business trip, and why?
Hoo. I might have to give a top 2 or 3.
That's okay.
So I would say one of my top ones would be South Korea. I was very fortunate enough to, at the time, I was leading our charge in the honey industry. And there was a very large global conference that my boss at the time, who was my mentor and taught me everything I knew up until I left working under him, he said, I need you to go to this conference. I said, sure, where? Korea. Okay, sure, great. So the customers that I was just starting to build relationships with, they said, you're coming by yourself. We'll take care of you. Come with us and let's have dinner. Let's, do all that. So that was a wonderful experience. Within that experience too, I actually got to meet one of our colleagues who runs the first Eurofins testing lab in the world in Nantes. We got to meet in person, and that just helped develop more of a networking sort of relationship. I actually had to call in a favor to him last week. And this was 15 years ago when we first met face to face. I would say Ukraine is a close, maybe that might be first. Also for the honey industry, that was an amazing experience. Just different culture, food, absolutely beautiful place, and also a place that produces honey. I'm very proud of what they do. And it just gave me an opportunity to interact with people from all over the globe, people from competitor labs, and some of our customers, some not our customers. Very interesting. So I would say those are the top 2 outside of the US. Within the US, quite a lot. So
Very good. Well, Christine, I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And is there anything else you want to share with the visitors on this session today?
and I would just like to thank you again for inviting me to have this discussion. And I mean, some of the topics we talked about, you know more than me because you've been doing this a long time as well, Doug. So maybe a little bit, just a little bit. But no, I always enjoy our conversations and just our joint effort to try to keep us going with high quality, high expertise, just customer focus. It's fun, and we've been doing it a long time, and I'm looking forward to continuing. So yeah, just thank you again.
Awesome. Well, thank everyone for joining us today, and stay tuned for the next episode. And I wish you all have a pleasant remainder of your day. Thank you.